You listen to WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM in the city that loves you back. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your host, Ray Collazo. You're listening to the new show name, Found in Translation radio show here at WPPM, as well as the podcast. There's actually breaking news, Monica. It's my guest host today, Monica Parrilla, with our new name change. And, of course, Ray's Latino Talk podcast, soon to be changed to the new name. I told y'all on Facebook I was going to have a real special guest. And, of course, who I like to officially call La Comadre of North Philly, activist, entrepreneur, Puerto Rican superwoman, Monica Parrilla, back on Ray's Talk Show.
Thanks for the introduction, Ray.
Woo! You know it's going to be a hot show. I wonder what we're going to talk about on May 23rd. And Monica Parrilla. Monica, let people know for people. You've actually been on the show several times, and not as often as we would like, of course, but let people know a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to get right into it.
Yeah, definitely. My name is Monica Parrilla, and I co-own with my husband Mars Auto Central. I've been in the business for, I want to say, more than 10 years already. I love politics, of course.
Politics, entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
So there's a Latina, not only a business owner, but her and her husband own an auto body shop. So we're talking about, Latinas do it all nowadays. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. For people that know, watch the show, and we really appreciate, of course, our radio family here at WPPM LP, 106.5 FM. This is big-time stuff, Monica, right? We're literally around the corner from the Liberty Bell right here. And, of course, our Raised Latino Talk podcast audience from around the country and of course, Philadelphia, but around the country, around the world. We got family on the island watching and listening, Tokyo, Japan, all kind of places. But of course, our Facebook Live audience. And, normally people that are hardcore listeners of the show know that we take great care with our other co-hosts, Christina Vega, Dionelli Reyes, we're going to talk about later.
Hey, Chrissy, if you're watching.
Chrissy Vega, our homegirl, little sister,
Yeah.
Lisa Santos. My guest.
Montanez.
Oh, that's right. Montanez. That's right. New name, new life. But same old Lisa. So the and I take all these. I have these like detailed scripts, and there's like all this prep. Monica and I, it's just freestyling. Today's just a freestyle show. Not a lot of script.
It is.
We have a very rough outline, but we know we're going to get to it. So later in the show, we're going to talk about presidential politics, our Stacking 20s update, of course. We're going to get into some national headlines and some very serious business we got to keep going on. And later in the show, Monica is going to debut the new segment she'll be on. Monica, can you share the name of your new segment on Raised Latino Talk podcast?
It's called Debajo La Alfombra.
Woo, that's all that you need to say. We're going to get into it later in the show. I'll tell you. Can WPPM Radio handle this conversation, Monica? That's the question. And, of course, some of the local issues. But we did want to start with the big news in Philadelphia. We just had our primary elections. And for people not familiar with local politics and Pennsylvania politics, we very important primary elections because it was our city elections here in Philadelphia. Yep. So we had the mayor's race, some interesting city council races, judicial races, some other races, and of course we had similar races around the country, around the state, local elections, and I'll shout them out in a second. So Monica, the mayor's race wasn't super interesting. Mayor James Kenney, I think was sort of a vulnerable candidate, but the other candidates really just didn't put up much of a fight. Well, why don't we start there? Obviously, there's some hot city council stuff we're going to talk about in a second, but I think it's safe to say that was a bit of there was interest in the topics, and there was a lot of conversation about the mayor, but ultimately, the other candidates didn't seem to put up a very compelling case for themselves.
I think I would agree with that.
Yeah, so you could tell Monica wants to get into the city council stuff. She's like, let's move on.
So eager.
so let's get right to it. So, and we did have some at-large races we're going to talk about, but the big conversation in the Latino community this week was we had sort of essentially the battle for the sort of political control of the community. Longtime city councilwoman, Councilwoman Maria Quinones-Sanchez, who in this city rarely do incumbents get challenged, but amazingly so, an independent Latina simply always gets pushed back by the Democratic Party here. So longtime State Representative Angel Cruz ran against her. He's sort of been the face, as I talked about last week on the show when I talked about the election, sort of the face of sort of Latinos in sort of the machine politics of Philadelphia, so the old school political paradigm, and we're trying to a new one here. So Maria won a fairly close election by 500 votes, which for a big city council election is fairly close. And we could talk about our analysis, but Monica, I just wanted to, again, for local people, but also our national audience not as familiar with the candidates and the dynamics here. Why don't you share with people your perspective on this race that just took place?
I think we have a lot to learn as a community as a whole, and how elections work and how they're really won. A lot of times we look at elections like, oh, get out to vote, and you got to do your homework behind the candidates and see, what they stand for and if they really, really fight for what you believe in.
It's interesting because one of the dynamics in the race was that, if you run against an incumbent, and in this case, I think Maria's been in office 12 years, long, very well established, there's oftentimes, there's sort of like a compelling policy reason. There's some issue, either a scandal or some sort of major disagreement around the direction of the city. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about the race was that Representative Cruz didn't really have a lot of disagreements with her on policy, on substance. He came around on the injection site stuff. There was a little bit of a flip-flop thing, right, on certain things. I believe he did come around on the soda tax stuff. Mm-hmm. And, Maria's almost been a singular figure against that. And that's kind of proving as a sort of a looking better and better every day, that position she took a few years ago. But it very much was basically like a personality argument. She's hard to work with. And she's hard to work with. So what kind of feedback did you get from the community? I would think Latinas had some strong thoughts about that perception, like, well, she's hard to work with or she's tough, and that's a reason she shouldn't be in office, when she has a very long, whether you agree with her or not on issues, she has a very long record of policy and legislative accomplishments.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of the pushback was that she doesn't get along, but she's proven already that she can work well with Angel, as a matter of fact, especially around the whole topic of, the hurricane hitting Puerto Rico. They work well together.
Absolutely.
So that kind of negates the point that she doesn't work well.
And besides them, a lot of people, they were the obvious people, but we all worked together.
Yeah, so
which was we had never seen that here.
She doesn't work well. That it negates the whole thing. So she definitely does. Policy-wise, blows them out of the water, of course. There was a lot of mudslinging at the end of the election. Maria really kept a good profile, flying high, of course, and not trying to do that negative, promos and stuff like that. But she definitely did win. Where do
you think we go from here? So we have, the other side of this is that we have in the sort of core Latino community 3 elected officials now. We have Councilwoman Quinones-Sanchez, and of course Angel remains a state representative, and then a relatively new state representative, Danilo Burgos, who's the first Dominican American in their state legislature, and sort of has history on sort of both sides. And so where do you think, what's your feeling in the community? What are people telling you in terms of what we want to see? Because the feedback I always get is people in our community, it's ironic because people want to see us working together, but they basically keep voting for this sort of separation of powers. No, it's a lesson that we have to learn, and it looks like we're going to have to learn it the hard way. If we look at it, the Democratic Party has always sided against her, and I think the party's kind of either lost the vision or understands who is the party. It's the actual voters. So 4 times she went, unendorsed by the party, and she's done what she had to do, and her track record, and everybody knows she's the best for us. Why not just start listening to the actual voters? If the voters say that, then next election, who do we hold accountable and say, okay, hello, party, what are you guys doing? Clearly, the voters have already voiced who they want. Why not just back who the voters want at the end of the day? Like, what's the holdback? Why are they not supporting her after 4 times, And let's talk about the voters, because you were out there, Monica, getting people information, registering people to vote, eventually getting them out to the polls. What were the issues, especially for people not in Philadelphia? So basically, this is a community that has a lot of poverty, a lot of issues. There's a particular section which is sort of ground zero in the region for the opioid crisis. We're going to talk about in the second segment. What were the issues you were hearing about in the street, and what did people want to hear from the candidates besides just Maria and Angel, the mayoral candidates, the other candidates? What was on minds of people while you were out there in the community during this cycle?
No, it was definitely the safe injection site that they have, that they want to put in Kensington, around Kensington, Allegheny, over there on Hilton Street. I think that's where they're going to place it. That was like the common issue, and they both
even outside of Kensington, like people talk about that in Juniata or like Honey Park.
Everywhere.
Really?
To me, it's a national thing that people
that's
come,
true, yeah.
And they did their due diligence. Well, Maria did her due diligence and went out and saw an actual safe injection site in
Canada. I think she went to, right? Yeah.
In Canada. So she's definitely doing her homework. She's always been against the placement of where exactly this is going to be because the residents are tired. You know, the children walk through these neighborhoods, and if they play in a playground and fall over and get actually, you know, hit a needle or something, their lives are in danger.
Oh my God!
So you know, it's important.
And you know, and I know the councilwoman's talked a lot about this sort of the emotional trauma of seeing this. And so I'll share a story with you. I was taking my sons to a trip at the USS New Jersey, which is like an old battleship that they have on the pier here, and we had to drive through Southern Camden to get to it. And basically, my son saw what we see in Kensington every day, like people that are drug addicted, strung out, walking around like zombies, and he started crying. Like, he was just like, we have to do something for these people. Like, he had just never seen anything like that before. And so, look, you know, like, unfortunately, a lot of our kids have to see that like every day.
It's become the norm.
It's become the norm, and we're going to talk about this later when we talk about the immigrant children that are dealing with this ridiculousness on the southern border. Is that the trauma of children of color is underreported, and you know, thinking about the sort of what do you call it when you've been in war, like, you know, just like the PSD that our black children or Latino children have in these neighborhoods with either shootings or violence, or in this case, open air drug abuse, primarily, not solely, but primarily by people that aren't even from their community.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Monica, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about these local politics and get into more headlines here on Ray's Latino Talk podcast. Lauren, take us away. I want to give Lauren, our producer here on the show, a lot of props for helping us. Monica, while we do the outro, shout out again your social media.
Absolutely, Monica Parrilla. And you can also go follow Marzado Central. Hi, Manolo.
You're listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM, and you're listening to Ray's Latino Talk podcast. You know, Monica, you can listen to the podcast anywhere you can download a podcast. You know, we're on Spotify,
Cool.
TuneIn, iHeartRadio,
Big time.
YouTube, of course. We see the videos on YouTube. We're on, you know, I mean, anywhere. If you got one of these fancy phones, you can check us out 24/7. And, of course, not only do you listen to the radio show every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, so this way on WPPM on Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, and also you can check out Philly Cam, not only on TuneIn Radio, but phillycam.org/listen. You can listen to all the great programming. The show that's on after us here, that they're going to tape Black Tribbles, which is like minorities geeking out on sci-fi and comics and stuff. Ooh. So they got a lot of really interesting programming. Emma Restrepo has a program in here, a lot more Latinos doing the big things here on WPPM LP Philadelphia. Before we get to the serious stuff, I wanted to shout out the listener of the week, Monica. This woman is very close to your heart, your vibe. Her name is Yvette Mayo. Yvette is a Boricua entrepreneur in Houston, Texas.
Hey, Yvette.
She's a huge fan of the show. She's always supporting, always sharing, always
awesome, providing us feedback. And the reason I'm shouting out this week, she sort of was my tour guide to Houston, Texas the other day. But the reason I'm shouting out this week is that she shared, I guess, what best is described as Puerto Rican food porn on Facebook yesterday. Apparently there's a Puerto Rican restaurant, Monica, in Houston, Texas, that serves a mofongo hamburger. What?
Oh my God! I'm gonna show you the picture after the show.
A mofongo hamburger.
A mofongo burger. It was next level. She said it's as delicious, as beautiful as it looks. It is a thing of art. It is exquisite. Of course, a close cousin to the jibarito sandwich, which is a big tostones with a sandwich, right?
I've seen that. You've
seen that? Yeah, we make that at home. It's a big Chicago Rican thing. Chicago Ricans think it's like their thing.
A mofongo burger?
A mofongo burger. So shout out to just that moment of delight. And so actually, Monica, before we get to the show, you know, it came to mind, and this may not be a popular opinion amongst my friends, but this was actually the rare. I don't think Puerto Rican food is particularly photogenic. I was thinking about this. I mean, when you see like people put their plates of food, I mean, it's delicious. But do you really want to see it on Facebook as much as we see it?
Yeah, we do, Ray. I don't know what you're talking about. That it looks good, tastes good, everything.
I don't. It doesn't really look good. I know it's good, but does it really look good?
Presentation. You got to use the right plate.
Okay, so it
you can't
depends
put
on
it
the
in a paper
photography.
plate, in a
No, they put it on the
plate.
paper plate. No, the thing is what cracks me up is Puerto Ricans be like putting it out, like, and that's it. They just put it out. And it's like, okay, arroz con gandules y a piece of,
as
y
fast
pollo.
as it goes in the plate.
Y aguacate. Like, wow, that is such. I could see if you made something special, pastelón, or something you don't make all the time, escabeche. Like, but it's like, okay, that's
Rice
Tuesday.
and
That's
beans. That's the
Tuesday.
main plate.
That's wonderful. No, and then they're impressed with themselves. Like, mira, look what I made. Rice and beans. Anyway, it's a pet peeve of mine. But our food's delicious. But I don't know.
It's
good.
good.
I think we're over. I think it's overexposed on Facebook. But anyway, and again, you listen to Ray Latino Talk Podcast. I did want to briefly mention, Monica, we talked about the city council race, and I do want to get your thoughts of kind of where we go from here. But really quickly, I do want to shout out, there was 5 Latinos that ran for city council at large. And I just want to say, if any of them were watching here, we were particularly supportive of Fernando Trevino and Eric Almiron. But the other ones were very good. I was very impressed. I listened to their debates and stuff. They were all very good. But let me tell you something. And this is a lesson for people listening to this. None of them won at the polls, technically, but they all won. They all got a significant amount of votes. They all spread a message.
Right.
They ran very positive campaigns. Nobody hated on each other. They really were running against each other.
And
And they got
People believe in
endorsements.
them. Yep.
Absolutely. So, and I think Adrian and Erica got over 30,000 votes each. So they actually were pretty close to that 5th spot. So I just want to give them a shout out. And I just want people to understand, if you're thinking about running for office, or you've run for office and you came a little short, or also you maybe you worked on local campaigns, and maybe you didn't win, but all of that work, and thinking about the work we've done to register voters, Monica, and engage people in issues, all of that work makes a difference.
Absolutely. Keep the momentum going. I mean, hang in there, keep up the great work, and run again. Don't let this be a derrota. You just got to, keep going at it, get your face out there. And if you have policies, present them out there as much as you can and run the next time. Absolutely.
So I did want to get into this local issue. Monica, can you share kind of what's happening here? Again, not only locally, but for our national audience. So we have, basically, there's a neighborhood called Kensington, which essentially is in the heart of the Latino community now. And so long story short, it's kind of become ground zero for drug use, heroin use, drug use in our communities. And so we have, I think it's safe to say, Monica, as Latino advocates, we were particularly sensitive to this because, sort of apparent, it seems like certain communities are sort of encouraged to come, start doing the drugs there, and sort of stick around. And so it's gotten to the point where we're sort of people, the larger power brokers are sort of accepting of this to the point where they're going to create this clean injection site, which, while we care for our people that are addicted, regardless of where they're from, and we want to support them and get them the health care they need, there's a lot of, and I have this question, I'll just say this, is that would this be acceptable in any other community except the poor Latino one? Could you, me, and Monica go to Roxborough or another sort of working class white area in the city of Philadelphia and just put tents up, even if we weren't doing drugs, just put tents up on the sidewalk, which is basically what's happening.
I mean, if you're gonna have, it makes sense. If you're gonna have one in one spot, why don't you just put them everywhere?
Or just allow just people to
right. I mean, there've been plenty of suggestions also. I mean, make them inside hospitals, like, instead of having them open to the public, put them in where hospitals, like, there you go. You got a health concern. We'll stick them inside hospitals and go get your safe injection at a hospital.
That's right. So would you say, Monica, that what, in terms of the community, and I know there's a lot of good people thinking about that guy Raymond Cruz, and there's a lot of good folks in there, but doing work with folks to try to address these issues locally, and Maria and a lot of you all are engaged in it. What does the community want? What are they saying from you? Because there's got to be a lot of frustration.
To be honest, I don't. What they want, if they were up to, there would be no drugs anywhere. Right? So hold the people that sell this porqueria on the street accountable, right? So make laws about that.
Which is a lot of our folks.
Yeah, right? So
in that particular neighborhood.
They have to be held accountable for how they're poisoning our communities. 2, I think it would be a great investment to identify who these addicts are and what kind of enfermedad they have. I'm sorry, I'm speaking Spanglish, guys.
No, that's what the show's all about.
To identify, what they have and get them help in where they came from. Kind of like, all right, let's say that, Jimmy came from the burbs. Okay, well, if that's where he's from and that's where his family at, a lot of times these people need family. They need somebody they can reach out to. And if we can place them where they come from, maybe that would alleviate a little of the traffic and all the people that come in. And, and the fact that it's so easily accessible, you can get drugs and guns for that matter, like that. It's horrible. The community is tired. There are a lot of advocates out there that are holding, public meetings in churches, everywhere. The exposure is like on a grand level. It absolutely is.
A few years ago, and for people that are fans of Dr. Oz, this is the same community that had, a tent city essentially along some train tracks. And I know the councilwoman and a lot of you guys worked for years and years
absolutely.
to sort
Maria's been all about this.
Deal with that issue. Mm-hmm. And so the long and short of it is that that area was eventually cleaned out, and a lot of those folks that were sort of living in this tent camp sort of spread out. They largely stayed in the community. They just sort of spread out into the neighborhood. And a friend of mine, Max Gonzalez, I actually spoke to him today from Phoenix, Arizona, was in town. He had seen the show. Was like, I want to go there. And we're standing on the corner of Front and Lehigh or something. Lehigh, yeah. And I said, what's the thing that you observe from this? He goes, the people that I perceive to be addicted are white, but all the people that live here are Latino. And so I said, well, that's kind of the point of what we've been trying to say is and again, we don't got no, I know Ketsy's watching you, like how much these Latinos have done for even the white people and the people not from this community to try to get them help. So it's not a racial thing, but the reality is if they're not from this neighborhood, why are we allowing this? Yeah. And that's kind of the point is that, again, if you and me, and we went on a camping trip and just put tents out, even if we weren't doing drugs or doing anything for, how long would our tents sit there on the street in Roxborough? 15 minutes. Borough home, 7 minutes. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So what are we talking about here, and why are we accepting this in certain communities and not in others?
No, I don't know if they're accepting it. To be honest, they are fighting people from Kensington.
But I'm talking about with law enforcement and the mayor's office. I mean, that's what I'm talking about because the reality is that would not be the approach.
And it shouldn't go down.
If we were doing this in Roxborough. So I almost feel like I want to do an experiment, get a tent and see how long a Puerto Rican could sit there in East
before
Falls.
Getting booted. Yeah.
We'll get booted. And so you're listening to Monica Parrilla and Ray Collazo, Ray Latino Talk podcast. I want to get to the national news. Lawrence, give me a second. I want to get to the national news. And we're going to start this segment talking about our national headlines. Monica's going to read some names to you.
Here we go. Carlos Hernandez Vázquez, 16 years old. Felipe Gómez Alonso, 8 years old. Jackelin Cal Maquin, 7 years old. Juan de León Gutierrez, 16 years old. Unidentified 2.5-year-old baby. And an unidentified 10-year-old.
For those who don't know, those are the names of the 6 children that have died in the custody of ICE just in the last 6 months. Before these 6 children, the first child had passed in September, which we just found out about yesterday. A child had not died in the custody of the U.S. government in 10 years. And so I wanted to bring their names up because, again, going to this conversation we just had about the opioid crisis in Philadelphia, is that our humanity is literally on the line in this conversation. And so when I was talking, when Trump won a few years ago, and I actually went on some other podcasts, and on my podcast, I kept talking about, this is how Nazism began. And people say, wow, you're being exagerado, you're too liberal with your stuff, and you guys exaggerate things. So my question to you is, if the government, incarcerates children by their choice, they don't have to do it that way. You can keep the child together. There's ways to, process people that, after their parents, for the most part, have applied for asylum through legal ports of entry, and they die in our custody. What is that? So do 300 children have to die before we call it what it is? Does it have to be 17,000? In Germany, I bet you after 5 or 6 Jewish people died in the custody of the German Gestapo, well, it's 5 or 6. But then we became hundreds of thousands, and 50 years later, now we look at it a little differently. Yep. So my thing is, I don't care. I don't want another one. Remember when one died? Well, things happened. The kid was sick when we got him. 2, kids got. Now we're talking about 6 in 6 months. Monica, I'm not going to stop talking about this, and I get pissed off talking about it because there's nothing more important than our children's lives. I don't care what color they are, but in this case, they're brown. They're Latino children that are not being treated like human beings.
No, not at all. And the fact that one of them died in September, and we just found out the other day that this 10-year-old died, just goes to show there has to be more than this that we don't know of.
We don't know how many they have in custody.
Exactly.
We don't know how many. There's been reports of widespread abuse. We don't know how these children. All right, maybe for 6 that died. How many have gotten hurt? How many have been sexually assaulted? Abused. How many have been beat up? Abused. How many have been traumatized by this experience? Have you seen some of these? I mean, when kids have been reunited with their moms and dads.
Not enough have been reunited.
There, we could literally go to the border every day and protest in front of these places and not do enough. And so I'm not going to stop talking about it because really everything else falls short of this issue for me. And because this is beyond the death of these children, which is incredibly tragic. This kid, Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, Guatemalan young man, smart. He was from a large family. He came here because he wanted to make a little money because he's got a sibling that has special needs and they need extra money to help the kid. That's why the kid did this treacherous journey not for any para joder la vida. Yeah. Obviously, our government's a lot more dangerous to these children than vice versa because I don't hear ICE people getting killed by these. These are not gangsters. These are children. What did you read? 16, 8, 7, 16, 2.5, 10.
2.5.
They ain't doing nothing to nobody.
And these, like I said, these are ones we know of. What about the ones that are lost?
We didn't know about this one 6 months ago. Sex trafficking. We don't. The sad thing is they don't know. That's the sad thing. They don't really know because every time we get a number, it's a different number. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to start talking about it. If you don't understand the seriousness of this, I need you to really think about why you're not taking this as seriously as we should. Because they're Latino kids. Because the media says it doesn't report about it every day. Let me tell you something. What else is more important than these kids when it gets down to it? Lauren, we come back. We're going to lighten it up a little bit. Talk about presidential politics because that's just so much fun. Monica, let people know where you can find you on social media.
Definitely Monica Parrilla and also Marzotto Central.
Listen to WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM, and you're listening to Ray's Latino Talk podcast. Soon to have a new name. That's going to be a very exciting announcement. Monica, I know you're holding your breath. Monica Parrilla with us again. No big script. We're freestyling. Yeah. It's like with basketball. There's the NBA, and then there's like the mixtape guys. The guys at the Harlem Globetrotters. They don't mess around. They do flips. They do alley-oops. We're just breaking this down. Monica, it's been too long. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So, Monica, you're a little low-key today. I guess it's been a long campaign for you.
Oh, my God. You have no idea.
So, Monica, entrepreneur, business owner, political strategist, political campaigner, got a lot going on. And what's the name of the segment we're going to do for the last segment of the show again?
Debajo La Alfombra.
Ooh, going to be hot. You got to listen to that. So, before we get into our Stack It 20 segment, we'll let people know we got an exciting event coming up, which our friend Lisa Montañez is involved in, the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, Monica. May 30th to June 2nd. It's going to be at the Kaplan Center for the Performing Arts, University of the Arts, right in the heart of Center City, Philadelphia, 211 South Broad Street. The first movie is May 30th, next Thursday, and there's a rumor that Ray's Latino Talk podcast may be broadcasting from there at the red carpet. We will see. Keep it posted. Really excited about this event. Afro Taino Productions, our great friends, Marangeli and Rashawn, lead this event. It's the only festival in the Philly area, Monica, that showcases Latino and Latin American filmmakers. So I know, Monica, we love our movies, and I know this is, with our friends' participation, is an important event for our community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so check out next Thursday for opening night, Kaplan Center for the Performing Arts at the University of Arts at 211 South Broad Street in the city of brotherly love. For tickets, you want to go to phlaff.eventbrite.com. That's phlaff.eventbrite.com. Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. Check it out next May 30th to June 2nd. Monica, thank you so much for coming back on the show. This is our Stack at 20 segment. I know you're a loyal follower of the show, so you know that I basically have lost like money that was going to go to my vacation or my trip to Vegas because we have not 1, not 2, not
Ray,
7, not
in Vegas.
14, not 19, but 20 now. 24 Democratic presidential candidates. My wife is like, this is getting a little ridiculous, but it's for a good cause. We make a donation for every candidate that comes out to support Christina Vega's Love Shouldn't Hurt movement. She's actually going to be showing her documentary again at Espira June 30th. So we definitely continue to support Christina. I'm sure she'll be on the show before. So we make donations to that wonderful effort to support the survivors of domestic violence and support them, particularly the Latinas and loved ones in our community. And so that being said, I'm getting a little lighter in the wallet because we have 2 more candidates. I want to get them quickly because they're not that important. Montana Governor Steve Bullock. All I got to say is this is the kind of level, Monica, of care that I have for my Raised Latino Talk podcast community. I actually spoke to a leader in Montana, my friend Molly, who's a community activist out there. I know, Montana. She rides or die with Steve Bullock. She likes Bullock a lot. But, it's Montana. I mean, you could fit the population of Montana and Port Richmond. You know what I'm saying? So he's got a lot to prove. And the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, has declared he did a video about supporting the common man in the back of his limo with security. So I'm going to channel Monica for a second. Our Nuyorican or the Dominicans in Nuyorican, the feedback they gave me about the idea of their mayor, Bill de Blasio. I'm going to channel. Mayor de Blasio, instead of running for president, why don't you fix the MTA, the subway? I mean, the L line's closed. You can't get the Bushwick. That's the hood. You can't get the Bushwick. The subways are a disaster. Yeah. In the summer, it's so hot. We go up there to the Bronx,
horrible.
go to the Puerto Rican parade. We're trying to get our groove on out there, go party, and to take those subways. Oh, it's so hot. Anyway, so I'm not feeling those campaigns. Monica, I know you're a political animal like me. What are your initial thoughts about the presidential primary so far?
A lot of candidates. I'm kind of curious on who to see, the Republican ones. It's kind of like, curious. I don't know.
So do you think just the amount of candidates for a lot of people's like kind of the story? Like, do you don't think people, I mean, we had these local elections too, but like, you don't think, do you think people have started focusing on it or?
Not yet.
I know Biden's way ahead of the polls, but that seems like a kind of
no, there's so much going on with the current president right now that I feel like it's not getting the attention it should, but everybody's paying attention to what he's doing right now. So it's kind of like on the back burner. So
the interesting thing people should know locally is that not only Vice President Biden, he's kind of a local guy, Delaware guy, and he was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, but he has his national campaign office here in Philadelphia. And so I want to shout out one of our contributors, Dionelli Reyes, who represented us. We were invited, Monica,
really,
to the Philadelphia kickoff Saturday as a fam. You were a little busy Saturday, I was a little busy. So Dionelli Reyes represented us. He was actually part of the VIP area. She took some nice pictures. We posted them on Twitter, and so I was, and then we had Vanessa Cardenas, who's one of the senior leaders of the Campaign a Latina, who came on the show last week to talk about them being in Philadelphia and kind of her experience as a Latina sort of on the top echelon of the campaign. Right. I will say this. I was surprised. They didn't have a big crowd there. And I actually have some connections with the Bernie Sanders campaign. He had a rally in Georgia that actually seemed like as big or bigger. And so my take is I think Biden has a lot of support, but it's not like real ride or die.
Right.
And so I think there's an opportunity for some of these other candidates to step up, but they got some work to do. Monica, as an activist, as a business owner, what issues? The first debates are going to be in Miami in late June. And so there's a rumor I might be making an appearance at Miami. Well, that's another story. But what do you, at this first debate?
Style, huh?
Well, I'm a political guy. I got to be in the mix. I got to be in the mix. So there's conversations. But seriously, what in these first debates and these debates this summer that are going to take place, a lot of these candidates are going to introduce to us. What do you want to hear from these
immigration?
People? Really?
That's it.
As a Puerto Rican businesswoman, that's the first thing that's interesting.
Immigration.
Talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you want to hear? What issues within immigration?
Exactly this. Where's that list at?
These children.
That's it.
How are we going to remedy this situation?
Absolutely.
So even before we get to immigration reform and TPS and all these other children interesting issues, how are we going to, because they're not, I mean, depending what happens in Central America, this is going to continue to happen. People are going to be coming. So, and then what do you want to hear from a business owner, small businesswoman, trying to do it in the community successfully? What do you want to hear in terms of their plans for the economy? Because some are saying, well, the economy is going well, low unemployment rate, but at the same time, a lot of us are struggling just to make ends meet. The majority, 60% of us couldn't pay a $400 car repair bill if something happened to our car today. So what do you want to hear from them in terms of their economic policies?
Definitely job creation is important. Hopefully, they have to create a sector and really explain how small businesses play a large role in the United States economic sector. So jobs is important, but also these small businesses employ. Like they employ these people. And if we could get them to work, it'll work. But what's hard, especially for minorities to do, is actually get a bank to believe that you can make it. So I think the hardest part for a small business person
is capital.
Right.
You want to see how can especially I'm thinking about our Latino small business owners, which is the biggest growth area for entrepreneurs in this country. Absolutely. How do we get our Latina business owners more capital so you could have a Pep Boys size shop, or you could have multiple locations
franchise
for your
that
business.
matter,
Absolutely.
And have a bunch of shops out there. I think that the biggest part is, your credit is fine, but what about your debt to income ratio? You can have an 800 score, 800 credit score, but when they look at how much debt you have and what you actually make, they're like, well, we can't approve you for a loan to get your business, but then you want the economy to grow. So it's kind of like, one, educating about finances isn't very important, and two, actually lending. There's people out there that have great plans on how to run businesses, and they don't know how to put it
and in your case, have a track record.
Absolutely.
Have a track record with your business. It's very interesting because I see our homie Jose Nieves from Minnesota chiming in. So we got people from everywhere watching and listening to the show. But what's interesting is that you say that, and at the same time, we have reports about our president having basically borrowed hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. So what I tell people is that the only difference between the used car salesman on the corner trying to hustle you and the president is a credit line. Because let me tell you something, we've said this many times on the show. If I gave Monica and Ketsy and our friends $10, $15, $20 million, they could put they can get our homies together. We could put big, beautiful buildings together, put a big M on it, a big Q. We could have all kind of beautiful buildings and go under cost and everybody get paid. It'd be lovely. Yep. But it's really that access to capital and this equity issue. Mm-hmm. So everybody's working. Of course, when we were our families were in the campo in Puerto Rico, migrant farm workers. Of course, slavery is an extreme example. Working is not the issue. The issue is, are we making enough money to make ends meet and have access to capital so that we don't have to work for someone our whole lives to barely make this? It means have the businesses because we certainly have the talent, and also think about. I think about this housing issue, which we want to talk about more on the show, and just thinking about so many of our people. And just thinking about gentrification and sort of our neighborhoods are changing now. Like, even if they're working 2-3 jobs, they can't even afford rent like in a middle class neighborhood. Yeah. So there's a lot of issues out there. I know housing is a big issue in your neighborhood in Juniata.
Oh, absolutely. We got to do this for that.
Oh, yeah. No, housing is definitely a big conversation. We come back, Monica. The name of your segment again?
Debajo La Alfombra.
Woo! When we come back on Ray's Talk Show, Monica, I'm just going to get out the way and let Monica do her thing.
Listen, mi gente.
It's coming.
It's coming. Mi gente.
Listen to WPPM LP Philadelphia, 106.5 FM in the city of brotherly love. And you're listening to Ray's Latino Talk podcast and the What's Next radio show here on WPPM LP Philadelphia. Monica Parrilla is my guest. We're freestyling. again, this is, you don't need scripts when you got Monica in the building. So we really appreciate. We've talked about the local elections. We've talked about our thoughts, Monica's thoughts as a business owner and an activist around the presidential elections, what she's looking out for, the opioid crisis, which is we're in ground zero here in Philadelphia, and of course we shout out and I continue to contribute apparently with all these candidates to the Love Should Hurt campaign. This is quite a spectacle here, Monica. Just so you know, I will actually I am going to announce some tour dates for my podcast, but I'm going to be in Chicago. I have an event for work Saturday, June 22nd. So we are in negotiations. Actually, if my Chicago people are listening, we'd like to find a location for that Friday night to do the show live in the Chi. I got people out there. Humboldt Park. We got you go to the hood. So if any of my Chicago people, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys. So hopefully we can catch you all out in the Chi very soon. Of course, I'll be in San Diego this summer, but that's later on in the year. So Monica, the floor is yours. This is your segment. Repeat the segment. My first question to you is talk about the segment and talk about before your specific your little pet peeve today. What's your vision for this segment of the show when you appear in future episodes?
That we can talk about any and everything. Like if you were sitting at your kitchen table con tu abuelita, con tu tía, con tu madrina, la comadre, just anybody.
I see. My vision for this segment is I really would like the audience, particularly our people on Facebook Live, but anyone listening around the country or on the radio in Philadelphia, to submit comments or questions to you. I think there's pet peeves. There's people are struggling with. They need that kind of comadre advice, don't you think, Monica?
Yeah, absolutely. There's 100 million, so many pet peeves. I have a bunch of them I can think of right now. But,
so there'll be a lot of time. So the floor is yours, my friend. Is your segment?
Yeah.
Let's share what you'd like to share today.
Definitely. So, Debajo La Alfombra, right? A lot of stuff goes on in families and in politics and
in the
friendships.
Cut, on the DL.
In the hood, on kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, you turn the face and people be like, mira, esas cosas no se hablan. And they kind of like, mira, cállate la boca. Those are the kind of things that they kind of just swipe under the rug. And that's where the title came from, Debajo La Alfombra. But you could count on me to call you out and then get the broom and sweep you right under there. Right? So the sweeping today is going to be about representatives or elected officials that are using taxpayer dollars for their salary and actually don't show up for work. And this is across the board. This is like a national thing because I was reading a few reports. The first one that I've seen was written back in 2013, actually, that so elected officials, it could be Congress, House of Representatives, legislative officials, they get elected by the voter. And when the purpose is to go to work and create policy and law. So they get elected and then they go to work. Not only do they get their salary, but they get a daily stipend when you show up
depending
to work,
where they go.
Right?
Yeah,
depending on where they go.
You
get a car. I think some of them
get a car or a travel stipend.
Right, or the travel stipend.
It's like athletes. You get paid for the food. You get
all of that.
Travel,
you get the perks.
lodging.
You get the perks.
That money's not coming out of your pocket.
But Ray, help me out. Where does that money come from?
Taxpayer.
There you go. Now, what happens, though, when a third of the year that person doesn't show up for work?
Well, it's interesting because unless that body does something about it, it's up to the voters. And the question is, we have to have that accurate information so people can make decisions.
Absolutely. This is why I knew that I had to touch this topic, misinformation. So a representative who is accused of doing something can even say, oh, well, yo cogí par de días libre, estaba de vacaciones, estaba enfermo, no cogí mi salario. They get paid no matter what.
Yeah,
it's in the Constitution. They're going to get paid.
Yeah,
whether they show up or they don't.
Yeah.
Taxpayer dollars are
and
going.
If they're donating it, they need to come up with some receipts. You know what I'm saying?
Algo.
This came up when I ran for state rep in 2004. It was old lousy politician named Bill Rieger I ran against. He's been dead by now. And this came up because he was like famous for that. He actually would he had a way of sticking some papers and some he would tape up a piece of paper to stick it into the voting because at his urn in Harrisburg where you would vote yes and it would just click yes or whatever the whole time.
Right.
So he never went to work. He was like ridiculous. He wouldn't go to work for months at a time. He didn't live in a district. He was a total mess. But so this is an issue we've been dealing with our community because
Absolutely.
we need even if you don't have the best ideas, you got to show up. You got to be engaged. That's how you learn. That's how you get ideas. And look, everyone's got a different style. Not every elected official is going to be the one that's passing all the laws and doing else. But you got to, then what else are you bringing to the table?
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of things come into play. Like when they're not there, do they get how the teacher does roll call and like, hey, I'm here. Is another person allowed to say, yeah, he's here, he's in a baño or something? Like, how do you know that half the time that you are there is because someone else is saying, yeah, está por ahí.
So this is a good tip. So when you go to a town hall, I encourage people to go to community meetings, go to your elected officials' offices, go to forums that they have. And that's a good question. Like, tell us about your experience if it's a legislature, if it's a council, if it's a school board. Where can we see your absentee record? Where can we see, I went to the school board meeting the other day and you weren't there. So those are some, unfortunately, sometimes we have to deal with those basic things. So Monica, that's a good one, but I did want to ask you this. So you're also good at giving our young people like love and romance advice. So we got a lot of friends that I'm thinking about our college young people. We got a lot of you in their early 20s. And oftentimes they either come to me for advice, or you could tell they're trying to figure out their life. They're in a relationship and they're trying to figure out like, am I moving too fast? Am I moving too slow? Is this the one? It's like, well, you don't really got a lot of experience with this. So give some of our young people out there some advice. If they're trying to figure out that whole situation, I always try to tell them, well, try to get your life together first. But it's hard, nobody wants to listen to an uncle, right? So, Monica, give some of our young people, because I know that's one of your key things is giving people, give that love advice. Come on now.
If you are young and you're in college and you're under 26,
34?
No, man, quédate quieto. Like, what's the rush? Go and have fun. Disfruta tu vida. Go on trips, travel.
Oh, my
no
God.
Rush, man. Just
Tell
no children, no baggage, no drama. Déjate de eso. Just go have fun. Do your thing.
Enjoy yourself. Don't do nothing stupid, of course. No. Don't be disrespectful to people. But look, you got to enjoy your life because, life will change. You blink. You got a mortgage. You got a fam. You got, like, real responsibility.
And let me give you this tip for you college students. Guys, listen up now.
Okay.
Girls don't like bad credit. No. When you see those tables at the colleges that say, sign here, we'll give you credit, give you a free T-shirt if you apply, don't do it, bro. No lo haga.
Notice we're not talking about chocolates and,
no.
swiping. This is like the real life stuff.
I'm telling
real
you.
priorities here.
Stay away from those high interest credit cards. Just don't. You don't got the cash. No es pa ti. It's that simple. No es
You're going to be broke anyway. You might as well just,
That's
build up slowly. It's all good.
That's it.
Life is a marathon. So, Monica, I want to thank you for joining Raise Latino Talk podcast.
So
Remind people again where they can follow you on social media. And also, if you got a whip that needs a fixing in Philly, this is a great location, so let people know the address and where they can find you.
Definitely. Everybody in Philly knows where Tierra Colombiana is at. We're right across the street. Right across the street. So
yo, every time I'll go over there, I'll go to Tierra for lunch, and once I'll just pop in. Much respect to your husband, Mars. That's my man right there. We'll just talk about something. We didn't get into Nicky Jam, so there was a big controversy.
Oh, my man.
No, so he had a show in Orlando. That's my wife's
That's
chulo
my
too.
chulo.
Oh, I know he is. So that's another conversation. He had a show in Orlando at like 5. The show's at 7:30, 8 o'clock on a Thursday. He canceled at 5 o'clock last week. And they were, Puerto Ricans, they're vicious. Yo, I got dressed for this. I drove in from Jacksonville. I took 2 days off. You canceled en la última hora. So. And then the big thing was,
is he getting the heat?
He said, I was sick or whatever, but he did the show in Miami the next day. Ooh.
Okay.
I'm just saying. It was a controversy. Nicky Jam needs to come on.
We got to sweep that under the rug, right? With the reps that don't go to work.
Just that. We had to get into our fun stuff. Monica Parrilla, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate
you so much,
you
Ray.
joining the show. And you catch us on Philly Cam Radio and Raise Latino Talk podcast. Anywhere you download the podcast. Peace.